gentlemen, you guys ready for the next panel? Let's give a round of applause for the previous one. Great job, Zab. Great job, Expectar, Casino Coin, Treasure Island. If you're listening, you better be paying attention because this technology is going to revolutionize Las Vegas. Now, the next panel will be just as exciting, just as thought-provoking. The topic of conversation will be around rippling on the XRPL and tokenization, creating new economies of scale. The panel will be led by one of the most brilliant minds in the space, one of the most exciting individuals I've ever met in my life. Let's give it up for the XDC and XRPL developer, Quincy Jones. Let's go, brother.
Appreciate it, man.
Absolutely.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
All right. How's everyone doing today? Oh man. Yeah, freaking this has been amazing. Actually, just being here, seeing everyone coming out and really want to be able to expand their understanding on not just XRP, but blockchain technology and what the future may hold for it. I'm impressed, I really am. You guys should give yourself a round of applause just for being so amazing. So, one thing I really wanted to talk about, given the chance, I'm able to actually, go very into depth in front of all of you around some different ideas, is tokenization. Now, I bet you guys are all familiar with NFTs and people selling pictures and having these different marketplaces, and we talk about tokenization, like tokenize everything, but we don't ever really go into what that really means. And as someone who is working in the space every day and seeing all the different ways that really different objects can be represented as tokens and what they can provide as tokens, mostly in terms of being able to provide some means of allocating ownership to different goods, or being able to use these as accounting tools and people just keeping track of different aspects of these applications being built on Web3. So with tokenization, these objects, we're familiar with the idea of maybe tokenizing stocks, idea with the tokenizing bonds, and these like derivative assets that can reside on chain. We don't talk about why that's so important. One thing that I think is sort of like crazy to think about, but if I was someone operating in one country, the United States, and I wanted to interact with somebody interacting in another country like Russia or China or Japan or whatever it may be, the means of being able to exchange value just in terms of currency is going through multiple banks, multiple payment processors, going through even just multiple exchanges for the exchange rate, a lot of different moving parts in terms of doing that. Never mind being able to move different assets or being able to move different tools of accounting, whether they're sophisticated assets or even objects in a video game, whatever it may be. These different payment layers that are typically sort of saturated in Web 2 don't allow for an easy means of exchange between different items. So when we look at something being a token, the interesting thing about it is on these chains, it's a shared accounting tool as opposed to an individualized one. So if I wanted to create an asset as a brokerage firm or an object in a game, it'd be sitting as some data in a database. And being able to share that data with another application or share that data with another broker, another bank, be incredibly difficult. But being able to have this shared object as a token allows for me to be able to move that value of whatever that object may be between parties seamlessly, as opposed to trying to create some sort of tooling to allow the change in ownership of different objects that may reside in some account in some database somewhere. Well, what ends up being really important with this is, well, now you have a means of being able to exchange like currency through the native cryptocurrency, but you can exchange assets on top of that. You can exchange assets on top of that network with the native currency. And you have a means of being able to exchange with anybody with access to an internet because you're able to take these shared accounting tools and being able to trade them all over the world, as opposed to having some level of relationship between a broker, bank, exchange. All these other services that would provide this basic means of being able to allocate ownership of different assets can now be done through a series of tokens or a series of contracts that can facilitate these tokens. And even with talking about like contracts, as someone who works on the XDC chain, we do a lot with different types of smart contracts. Being able to programmatically manage these assets can now allow for people to provide services that otherwise would have to be provided by giant organizations. You can essentially have a series of a series of services provide different aspects of trading, different aspects of being able to facilitate sophisticated trade concepts and instruments like options or other types of derivatives, forwards, futures. You can have these be programmatic services rather than have giant institutions trying to be able to facilitate these services for you. And in theory, anybody in the world can now be able to participate with all these instruments that would otherwise have to be facilitated by giant third-party organizations. It's an interesting thing to see like what tokens could do in terms of being able to represent different things, and then those things can be traded worldwide simply based on people interacting on the same network. And these tokens can be anything. Like I said, it can be a representation of a traditional asset, a point in a game, an item in the game. You know, if you had a video game or whatever, and someone had 5 swords, and somebody else had 11 coins, the means of being able to exchange different goods between different parties is something that a marketplace would do. And you would do this with these tokens, but you could do this with a bunch of different tokens. So I could have, sword in game A and shield in game B, but maybe I don't play as much in game A as much and I'm moving to game B. I can trade with people these different items across games. Not that I'm like trying to play the shield in the other game, but I'm able to redeem value from one ecosystem and move it into another simply by being able to exchange these tokens, like I said, through a marketplace or through any sort of means of exchange. Where before you would have 2 different entities with their 2 separated databases that would have no real means of being able to exchange the relative ownership of what that asset may be. And that's just even for something as simple as a game. This can scale up to people being part of different branches of an exchange or a bank or whatever it may be. You now have these means of being able to exchange assets and goods in the form of tokens, even programmatically, in a way you've never been able to do before, especially in the Web 2 world. Anywho, sorry, I'm rambling a bit. These conversations really like appreciate it. But these conversations, I get the chance to have these conversations every day with a lot of people just by virtue of what I do. And I talk to a lot of developers. I talk to a lot of like business finance types, VCs, market makers, sort of a mixture of people trying to do everything, whether they have their traditional business and they're trying to expand into these different technologies. And I get this wide array of different use cases that I sort of see every day. And the big thing that I end up seeing is the number one use case is a means of being able to share information, share value, and be able to do that seamlessly in a way that would have been incredibly difficult. And I see these different types of tokens pop up. People talk about tickets, people talk about IDs, people talk about derivative assets, people talk about whatever, points in a video game. But the thing that all of that provides is a means for people to be able to exchange these objects in a way they otherwise wouldn't have been able to. And you can do that with everything. I think you sort of see these markets arise and people sort of jump into these markets because of how easily they're able to be assembled. But before these markets, and not that these things wouldn't exist, I usually like to give the example of, for the game example, how many of you guys are familiar with like World of Warcraft? You guys familiar with World of Warcraft? Well, there are already markets out there where people will go find some sword and then sell it to somebody on eBay and then change some sort of in-game currency or sell dollars to them, and essentially have these little markets that already persist. But they usually have like the game itself, some other marketplace to exchange it, some element of like, trust me, bro, in terms of trying to be able to facilitate this. But these already exist. The only difference with these tokens, in a sense, is these objects can essentially allow for people to programmatically be able to exchange ownership and provide these different services like trading, auctioning, whatever it may be. And instead of having to go to a third-party service like eBay to sort of like put on a random listing of, for 1,000 coins, I'll sell you this sword, you can have a native economy of different smart contracts providing those same services. And these different services can provide tokens for different ecosystems. Sort of what Bob was saying earlier was you could have all these different aspects of all these different units of value created in a ton of different ways. The tokenization allows for the assemble of markets to be able to exchange that value in whatever it may be, primarily around handlers owning these objects and ownership, meaning ownership allowing for the ability to use these objects. And this could be something as simple as like a key. You own it, boom, you're able to unlock whatever it may be. You hold an asset, you own the asset. You interact with some login mechanism, you're able to log into whatever your application may be. Whatever it is, it gives a means of being able to, these tokens act as a means of being able to give some aspect of trade between multiple parties and give the ability for the holder to be able to possess whatever the token represents. And like I said, it could be anything. And it's so weird to describe it that way. One example I like to give is, like, imagine like being in the 80s, and just hang on with me for a moment. Like, it's not the best example, but it's a pretty fun one. So imagine being like we're in the 80s right now, and someone's saying, oh my God, the internet, check this out. You know, I can pop on the computer and I can interact with servers all around the world. And they bring up like a black screen with like green text, and it's like going through, and they're like, look, I'm on a random, I'm on a random site for, Japanese like daytime television or something. And this is like brand new. It's like super technical. And the biggest thing is, I feel like when we're in the space right now, that's exactly like what we're in right now in terms of how technical things are. And I think what's going to end up happening as time progresses and as the space matures more is we'll start seeing services provide, or different applications, different businesses provide these services. And we may not even realize that they're operating on blockchain. Just like, the average person doesn't care about IP, TP, or TPC, just random protocols, or HTTP, whatever. Random people don't care about random protocols, but we use them every day. And I think the same thing's gonna happen with these networks, with XRP, with XDC, with a lot of these different networks that are able to focus on tokenization, because a lot of these services will allow us to be able to exchange value in a way we've never been able to before. But we may not even realize it the same way that we're interacting with the internet every single day, and we don't care about those protocols that operate them. And when we say everything's a token, well, you may be interacting with a whole host of different things online in the Web3 world, and these all may be tokens representing some accounting mechanism in your account, some mechanism of ownership for whatever it may be, an asset, an object, whatever it may be. And you may be interacting with this whole new world of services that allow for the entire internet to come together and allow for the entire internet to be able to exchange value with each other. And it's weird to describe it this way because it seems like everyone's sort of like jumping into these markets and speculating, but there's like real value being exchanged. Like with the video game example, if I'm leaving one game and I'm going into another, it'd be cool to be able to liquidate the value of one set of assets and be able to go into another set of assets for another game. If I'm essentially trying to do that as a bank or something and being able to redeem value from different assets that may be held by different organizations all over the world and being able to very easily sell, trade, and whatever with other people all over the world, it just allows an easier means of being able to keep track of different objects as accounting tools, but also a means of being able to exchange them. Like I said, in a way that's never been done before. Where before you'd have these isolated databases, these isolated companies, these isolated entities trying to figure out how to reallocate different units of value, now being able to be represented as a token and being able to be exchanged flawlessly. One example, I love to say this because I had a friend sort of working on this, but everyone's familiar here with like an NFT marketplace, right? You usually see pictures and everyone's like all hype, oh, you got this, pixel picture. The same instrument of an NFT marketplace could be the exact same instrument that a bank or a brokerage firm could use to now start providing different services on the blockchain the same way that they would in the traditional world, providing ETFs, mutual funds, trading capabilities, and use tokens to be able to keep track of all these things. It's just an NFT marketplace, or it's just some sort of DEX application, or it's just a function and a feature of different applications built on the network. And you can use tokens as a means to represent what those objects are to people to be able to engage with, but also you can use simple services like an NFT marketplace to provide these marketplaces. You can create a video game with the NFT marketplace, and just like sort of Bob was saying, where now people can start exchanging units of value within that game, whether it's different objects, whether it's different homes, worlds, whether it's different skins. You just now have a means of being able to exchange value between different objects within a whole host of different mediums. And it's literally could be anything. So it's like, by the time we're sort of like talking about like NFT this, NFT that, everything that's represented as a unit of account would probably be some sort of token. And that token is now easily able to be shared with other participants, or whatever that token may be. But yeah, it's just interesting seeing where the space is going. And it's interesting seeing like just different projects tackle a whole host of different problems, and all of them coming back to that idea of, if I'm able to exchange this seamlessly with other participants as an object, as a token, I'm able to drum up more activity in my enterprise, in my application, simply based on there not being any barriers. You could very easily exchange anything with anybody rather than having to these isolated instances of accounting, rather than these isolated instances of accounting. But no, I think we're going to see a huge, what's a good way to put it? I think everything into the future will be tokenized. And when it is, we may not notice that things being that much different, but we may start realizing that anything can be exchanged for anything else. And the means of being able to keep track of things may be easier to share than ever before. And it's just interesting to see like how that may be. In finance, we see this, but imagine like instead of having to go to a single broker, you can go online and interact with every broker on the entire internet, every single person who has access to these technologies. You now have access to everyone rather than a single service, or being able to go into a game, and now you have access to being able to exchange units of value with everyone from every game, and being able to sell units from one game to be able to buy units in another game. It could be anything. Imagine having a social media account and it's a popular meme account, and being able just to sell the account because the account's represented as a token and the token allows you to log in. It's so weird to describe like how many different things that are going to be represented, but also allow a means of being able to exchange value with it. Like I said, selling an account. Now, selling in accounts are a thing that already exists. People sell Twitter and Instagram accounts, but being able to have a login mechanism be sold as a unit of exchange to be able to access some sort of account or device or whatever is just, it's interesting to see how seamless that could be sold, the same way that a random NFT in an NFT marketplace picture could be sold as well. But the thing being sold could be so functional, like a login or a key or some set of assets, whatever it may be. Yeah, thanks for really having me here. I have a few different other ideas I want to explore, but really thanks for having me here. I want to thank Brad Kimes for inviting me and setting all of this up. A bit earlier, and I was excited when he first told me about it, but I'm really like excited seeing everything come together, and everything come together so well, and him giving me the chance to be able to talk about my ideas, and you guys definitely coming to listen is very appreciated. Just wanted to put that out there. Just really enjoying myself here with everyone.
Quincy Jones.
Yeah.
Thank you, Quincy.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Quincy will be here all day, so you can ask some more questions a little bit later.